Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can someone put a high five or a smiley face in the Q&A if you can hear me okay? Nice. Thank you, Pierre. Good evening, everyone. Huge thank you to everyone that's joining us on a Monday evening. Really appreciate it. And so good to see so many of you with us tonight. This is an introduction to Ultra X Tanzania. If you're on this call, that's awesome. That might be because you're signed down to do Ultra X Tanzania next year. It might be that you are considering doing Ultra X Tanzania next year, which is amazing as well. And it might be that you're just doing another significant challenge and you're looking to pick up some information, some tidbits, etc. So yeah, really, really exciting. We've got an amazing panel tonight, and we're going to be kind of running through super high level, giving you as much quick fire information and considerations for you to approach an event like this as we can. I think our kind of emphasis is always going to be kind of principle based, not necessarily specific information. We're giving you ideas to think about how to prepare and how to approach an event like this. My name's Sam. I'm one of the co-founders of Ultra X. I've been doing this, organising events for 5.5 years, and I love it. I love it because of the people that it gets together. I love it because of the amazing achievements which I get to see all the time. And Tanzania is one of my favourite locations and favourite events. So it's always a joy to team up with Brett and put on this event and head back there. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists this evening, starting from the way I can see the screen on my left. So Brett, if you're all right to introduce yourself first.
Yep, I'm Brett Harrison. I live in Arusha, Tanzania, and I work with Red Knot Racing Company. We are a community development organization, so we work in agriculture and livelihoods, children's sports programs, and we fund that through race organization. So we're excited to partner with Ultra X on Ultra X Tanzania every year.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Yeah, we've been working together for 2.5 years now, and Brett was the person that showed us around kind of Kilimanjaro area when we first came out there, just at the end of lockdown in 2021. And yeah, never looked back. So yeah, thanks, Brett. And next up is Steph.
Hey everyone. I'm Steph. I am a British Olympic marathon runner, and I'm also a coach at Runner, which is a training app with online personalised plans, which I'm sure lots of you will have heard of. So yeah, that's my background, professional runner and coach.
Thank you so much, Steph. And yeah, Runner are kind of our official training partner, and they've actually created 5-stage, 2-stage and single-stage specific plans for Ultra X events. So definitely something to kind of consider and maybe have a look at for those that are preparing for one of our events or a similar event in the future. And third, definitely not least, Jemma did Ultra X Tanzania this year, completed it, absolutely amazing performance. Jemma, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, so yeah, I'm Jemma. I live in Edinburgh, and I am a personal trainer. And yeah, so I took part this year in Ultra X Tanzania. And yeah, I'm excited to tell you more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So yeah, quick kind of run through of what we're going to touch on and a kind of agenda. If anyone does have questions, we will have hopefully 10-15 minutes at the end to answer them. If we don't get around to them, we can discuss and get back to you, and we'll put it in an email after this, which I'll send out tomorrow. But yeah, kind of high level, what we're going to be going through is what is a multi-stage event and what is Ultra X Tanzania? What does it kind of look like over the course of the week? What are the kind of logistical considerations that you might need to think about if you're thinking about this event? What to expect in the event? You know, some of you might have done different multi-stages with Ultra X or with other companies in the past before. What does the Monday to Friday look like? What do the trails look like? what is the route like, what kind of things can you expect, what kind of animals might you be able to expect. Then we're going to touch on the kind of training side, how to prepare, things to think about when you're building a training plan, and a little bit of maybe injury prevention. You know, what are the things to consider to make sure that you get to the start line in one piece, which is really important. Obviously, it's really sad when you see people not turning up at these events because of something which they happened in training in the weeks before. And then we're going to touch on a bit of nutrition and kit towards the end. And then if we have any time, we're going to be opening up to questions. And as I say, if you do have anything throughout the webinar, please feel free to pop it in the chat box, and we'll cover it at the end. So it is a bit of the whistle stop tour. We're going to do our best to give you lots of useful information, which hopefully will make an event like this more enjoyable, more accessible, and make you more likely to do better. So to start off with, I'm going to touch on what is Ultra X Tanzania, and I'm going to turn to Jemma, if that's all right, first. You obviously experienced the event this year. When you sit to your down next to, I don't know, a friend in a pub, and they say, like, you know, what were you doing? Like, what was the event? How do you answer that question?
So it was like much better than what I expected. So like it was just an amazing experience that I know Ultra X try to get across, but I don't, not that you don't do it right, but my experience was just so much more. It was like incredible. Everything about it, from the showers to the route to everything that goes on behind the scenes. Like when I arrived, I felt like really comfortable being there with everybody that's like there to look after you, to support you, to get you through it. And yeah, so that's probably where I'd start. Like it's hard to describe, but it's bigger and better than what just your training is. It's like, yeah, it's top level.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. But very kind words, and I'm sure there are moments in the week where maybe you didn't think that, but it's good that you come out the other side and you know, think you've had an amazing experience and remember that. And I guess from a kind of really kind of top level, for those who don't know, you know, the distances involved and the, you know, what actually happens at Ultra X Tanzania. Do you want to give a little like insights to, you know, what to expect when you turn up on the kind of I guess the Saturday and what happens over the course of the week?
Yeah, so when you turn up at the Saturday, gosh, it's a bit blurred. So that was us at the race hotel, right? So you turn up and you get to meet everybody, you know, settle in, everyone's nervous, but you just get nice accommodation, you stay, chat, and then it all starts on the Sunday when everybody is like loaded onto the buses and you go to your first campsite. And from there, that's when you have the rest of that day to like eat, drink, talk to people, just settle your nerves for first day Monday. And then that's when it really starts. It is not too early. Well, it wasn't for us the first day. Was it about 7 o'clock? So it wasn't too bad. And then as we progress through the week, it gets slightly earlier. And do you know what? I can't even remember the earliest start. Was it 6? 5:30? Like, the thing is, the campsite, or was it 4? The campsite is like, everybody's got their own plan. And so like, for instance, the tent mate that I was with, she would get up 2 hours before the start point to get ready, organized. I would lie in a little bit more and wait. But you know, so it's just everybody, it's like camps a week, like all night, and you must do what feels good for you and maybe like what you've practiced, so that you don't get carried away with everyone else, because everybody's got their own plan, everyone's got all their different nerves. And then when time we got to Friday, that's the day that you think that you'll never manage, because you're now tired, you probably had a bad time on the Thursday, everything just seems really, really hard. And like, I don't know where it comes from. Sam and the team, everyone said like Friday you'll feel your absolute best. And like, I don't know what the sleep did, but like on Friday I felt my best. And like my feet were in a mess, but I felt the best. And you know, and you need that in order to get to the end. And I guess it's like all the support that you get throughout the week that actually really, really gets you to the end. And like I say, it all merges into one, and it's all like compressed into one day.
Yeah, and I think a part of this is just something mental, is that when you know that's it and you're done, something switches, which just seems to change everything. And it's amazing, you know, it happens at all of the 5-stage events. You know, the final day is quite often the fastest day for many people, despite having run, you know, 180k or 190k in the 4 preceding days, and supposedly being, you know, at the end of the limit. And I think it's one of those amazing things about human body. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing. So yeah, Tanzania's 5 stages, Monday to Friday, and we typically have we have 3 bigger days in the middle. In 23, 24, the final day was also a fairly long day, about 50k, and actually Jemma stage particularly technical as well, a bit of climbing as well. In 2025, we've actually slightly tweaked the course, so we go in the opposite direction. So I think the distances basically start at about 31k, which is the first day, and actually the final day is a bit shorter. And then you've kind of got these 3 quite unique, quite long stages in the middle of the race. And I guess if I turn to you, Brett, to give a little bit of an insight as to, you know, what people can expect over the course of those 5 days, what each day looks a little bit like. I think one of my personal favorite things about Tanzania as a race is that there are actually 5 fairly distinct, you know, stages and territories which you go through. And it'd be great just to hear a little bit from your side about kind of what that looks like from a competitor.
Yeah, so the way we're going to do things in 2025 is we'll start at Namalak, which is a game reserve. So there are wild animals there in the reserve. It's a protected area. Wildebeest, zebra, gazelle, antelope, crocodiles. And we'll be starting from there at Namalak, and we'll actually run, it'll be different this year because we'll do a 31k loop on day 1 from Namalak back to Namalak. And that 31k will be fairly flat. It'll be a good introduction to running in Tanzania. It's not going to be technical. It's going to be fairly fast if people want it to be, but it's going to be hot. And I think that's where a lot of people from Europe are going to struggle in February. And so it's going to be hot, and it'll be one of the 2 hottest days of the week. But from that 31k day, we start adding quite a bit of climbing, I guess, several of the other days. So what once was stage 5, nearly 50k of running in the Blue Mountains, the most technical trail running of the week, will now be on Tuesday. That's stage 2. That'll probably be the toughest stage for anyone who doesn't handle heat well. That one's going to be hot. And then from there, we climb the next day almost 60k to Marangu, which is up near the Kilimanjaro National Park border. That's going to be a long day. Gemma's group got to do that downhill. We're going to be doing it uphill in 2025. But it's a pretty steady uphill. It's nothing too big all at once. It's only 1,200 meters of climbing. Whereas your next day, stage 4, is going to be the actual Kilimanjaro day. And so on that day, we go up to, what do we hit? 3,200 meters?
Yeah, it's 2,800 meters, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So nearly 3,000 meters on Kili. And that's a 2,100 meter climbing day. And then back down. So progressively, though, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to get cooler and cooler. Your coolest day will actually be Thursday when you're up high on the mountain. That's nearly a 50k day. And then you come back down from there. And the next day, we're just heading to a beautiful finish line. And that's all you have to do. It's a quick 38, 40k to the finish line at Lake Chala, which is one of the most beautiful finish lines in running.
Yeah. the reason we rotated it from what you've done in the past or what we've done in the past was because of the final campsite, Lake Charla, which is I'm sure you experienced it when you came off that bus on the first day, Jemma, and you come out of the bush and you just see this unbelievable lake right on the Kenyan border. So the idea is that we finish there this year, and logistically it means we're a little bit closer to Moshi at the end as well to get back home. Should still be a really cool event, really unique kind of stages. 3 campsites, so each one again slightly unique. First in Namalok, which is kind of a bush camp. It's the most wild campsite we're in. Over the course of the week, we set up the entire thing. So it's wild camping, wild showers. There's a crocodile in the pool fairly close, so you don't want to go swimming in that. And then we kind of transition to Marangu, which is it's actually a hotel for the whole of the year, and we camp in the gardens, which beautiful, luscious gardens with a kind of a pretty amazing view of Kilimanjaro, which if you get lucky and the clouds clear, as we were last year, you can basically see to the point. And then the third campsite is, as I've kind of mentioned, Lake Charla, which is on the Kenyan border again. Quite unique opportunities to actually swim in this one. There's no crocs in Charla, and stunning views. I guess from a kind of logistical side of things, Brett, do you want to kind of give us an insight into the kind of the camp setup that runners can expect when they arrive in camp?
Yeah, let me go back, if you don't mind, just a moment. On the course, I just want to stress how varied the terrain is, and the course and the trails. I think that's something really unique about this event, is we do have some very technical single track. We've also got a lot of fast, easy to run single track, and then we've got some double track, almost like safari roads that only Jeeps would be traveling on, 4-wheel drive vehicles. And then we do put you on some lesser traveled roads where there's actually some traffic. We want people to experience the nature that we have, geography here in Tanzania, but we also want people to experience culture. And that was, I think a lot of people, that's some of their favorite parts of the run, is stopping at a checkpoint and there's just a group of Tanzanian school children dancing and cheering. And so we want you to experience a little bit of everything. And so I think that's pretty unique. In terms of temperature and terrain, it's an extremely varied experience. Every day is almost entirely different. Some days you're running through something that looks like a rainforest, and then the next day it's almost a desert. And so I just want to throw that in there because I think that's something special about the event. In terms of logistics, when you arrive at a camp, what we've got is big shaded seating areas for all of the runners, all the participants to have seats in the shade, get their mattresses out of their tents if they like, lay around in the shade, under the trees, in the shaded, underneath the tents. We've got all the hot water there for people to make their dehydrated meals. We generally have, I guess at every camp now we have sodas and beers, cold beers and sodas for sale. And then, it's a full-fledged camp. Tents, mattresses, everything laid out. We've managed to figure out a way to get showers at every camp. So that's there, and campfire in the camps where we need it or where we want it. And even a few of the camps that are on, for instance, Marangu Hotel site, we've got a dinner service you can order from the bar and enjoy a burger and chips. In terms of logistics, everything's there. Clotheslines are out, buckets and soap for detergent for washing clothes. I think we try to think of everything people would need. Of course, Ultra X is there with their crew. You've got all of the physios are there, all of the medical team is around, and it's amazing how we come in and we've got suddenly just a village with 120 people living in the bush and taping feet in the mornings. Anyway, it's quite an experience. So
Yeah, I guess for those that haven't done Ultra X Tanzania or haven't done an Ultra X, it's quite a unique event. I guess if you're looking at multi-stages generally, one of the things I think, quite often organizers ask you to do is carry all your own equipment. That is something what Ultra X doesn't do. But if you also look at, something like an Ultra X Jordan, which is, fairly Spartan actually, it's a different experience, but fairly Spartan in comparison, where you are in 15-person tents, you have your own mattress, there is hot water, there's sometimes cold drinks available in camp, but you are in the what will a week. Tanzania is much, I guess, slightly more luxurious experience in that sense, in that you do have showers, you do have the capacity to get food, as in like proper meal on the middle campsite in Marangu, and there are, a few more kind of luxuries. So definitely, definitely things to kind of look forward to if you're doing it, and things to consider. Steph, sorry, I haven't got around to you yet, but say it's 6 months now from Ultra X Tanzania 25. If you're signed down, what are the things that you should be thinking about now, and what would you recommend for someone looking to build a training plan for this event?
Yeah, I think the longer you can give yourself to train, the better. And that doesn't mean you need to dive into a really like intense training plan with big miles or fast sessions or anything like that. What you want to be thinking about for the next kind of like 8 to 10 weeks, I'd say, before you start kind of like official training, is kind of building up your, what I would term like your aerobic base, but also building like a really strong foundation, which means doing things like gym work, strength training, so that when it comes to starting your training plan, you've got a really solid foundation to start from, which will really help prevent injuries along the way. And you want kind of that strong, robust foundation to kind of hold everything together. And any kind of running you do can be more focused on just kind of like easy, steady mileage, just to build up kind of like your aerobic capacity, your endurance, before kind of layering on potentially more miles, more efforts. So not basically overdoing it just now on the running side, but also still factoring in some running training. So when it comes to kind of start that training plan officially, you're not starting from a base kind of 0 miles. But it's doing also what is right for you. Everyone is going to have their limit when it comes to training and how much they can absorb and they can tolerate. So it's about working that out. And if you're ever unsure, then I would kind of start less than maybe you think you need to do, because ultimately, if it's so easy to kind of overstep the mark, and that's where then you will pick up an injury, and that can curtail kind of your own training. So kind of in the next couple of months before you start official training, it's just about kind of keeping active, getting strong, not overdoing it. And also that's really valuable from a mental perspective, because when the proper training starts, you want to be motivated and excited for it, and not already feeling kind of mentally burnt out because you've been training too hard already.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's very easy in this kind of, I guess, environment and this age to look at what everyone else is doing and kind of panic that you should be doing, more and faster and, hero workouts. And I think, as you say, the most important thing for doing something like this is the consistency and building up gradually and making yourself, getting yourself to that start line. And we talk a lot about, when we talk to people who are doing our events, and we say, you're better 20% undertrained than 1% overtrained, because if you just go slightly over that edge, then you can't do the event, which is just such a shame. And it's amazing what we are all capable of. Obviously that's from a kind of 6 months perspective, and you kind of touched on the more when you get to the actual training block, when you do get to that actual training block, or maybe the 16 weeks out, or whatever you kind of look at, what are the kind of things you think people should be thinking about?
So with something like an ultra, especially a kind of a multi-stage ultra, is you don't need to be focusing on too much kind of like speed work. it is valuable in your training to have that variety of paces, but it's not something that you should necessarily like worry about. You ultimately want to be able to have that endurance so you can kind of train day to day. Alongside that, because it is a multi-stage event, the days are long. You have a lot, from some days you have a lot of climbing to do. You really want to be thinking about things like fueling and hydration, and making sure you're practicing that from kind of day one as well, because you want to feel confident going into the race, knowing that you can handle certain products. It's not going to implode your tummy. You're not going to be sick, because ultimately with an event like this, it's also like a bit of a fueling contest. You want to make sure you get that right, because that is going to get you from start to finish each day, especially if it's hot. You want to make sure you're hydrated. I would always recommend, if people are doing kind of a big event where they have kind of aid stations out there, is checking out what products are going to be available on the aid stations. And if you could start off by trying those products out that are going to be on camp, on the course, making sure that they're or sit well with your stomach. And if not, then you want to be starting to think about, right, what products can I try that I know will sit well with my stomach, and pack them with you, because you don't want to be trying new things on race day that ultimately could completely curtail your day if you're having to hobble back because your stomach's in so much pain, or you just can't keep anything down and you don't have the energy. And same goes for like hydration levels. You really, really want to avoid being dehydrated. And as Brett touched on, it's going to be mega warm by the sounds of it. So you want to make sure that, yeah, you've got proper hydration. Any electrolyte tabs you might need, if you find you're a salty sweater, then definitely be taking them on. Things as well to kind of protect you from the heat, whether it's like sunglasses, hat, definitely pack sun cream, all these kind of things. And the more that you can do this in training and practice running with any fuel that you require, any kit that you require that's specific to you, the more confident and comfortable you'll feel on race day.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that there are no products available at aid stations, so you won't have to worry to adjust your stomach for that. But I actually think it's such an important point there. You know, we provide water at aid stations, but there won't be foodstuffs. But it's such an important point, is the fueling piece, and actually I think for a multi-stage and for any ultra marathon, a lot of focus is always on the physical training. And actually, I think doing well at these events is preparation. And that is, yes, it's your physical training, but it's also your kit, your nutrition strategy, and your hydration. And I think, that point you said there about starting from day one is really important. I think if you go on Google and search how many like carbohydrates or how many calories you should be eating when you're doing these kind of events, you're going to come up with a figure. And I think what people often do is find that figure and put it into their race day strategy, but don't use it in the whole of their training. And that's a bit like, training to run a 5K at 30 minutes and then going out on the day and saying, I'm going to run at 18 minutes. It just won't work with your body. So my advice would definitely be to, from now, basically any run that you can do, or even if it's just one run a week, you're practicing your fueling in the way that you will, because actually, particularly if you're new to the kind of ultra running game, it's it's quite a weird thing to do, actually, and particularly if you're used to shorter format marathon running, where you might be having purely gels or pure sugar form products. Suddenly, if you're not, it can really cause issues. And you really don't want that to ruin your race when you've put in so many, all the hours into kind of your training side. Jemma, when you were building up to Tanzania this year, what did your weekly training plan look like? We don't have to talk about distances or anything, but in terms of like kind of structure, and is there anything you would maybe change if you were to do the event again?
100%. I would definitely change, like focusing on a bit like what Steph said. I focused too much on speed and like longer runs, and I should have focused more on elevation, whether that was like I wish I had added in like the Stairmeister from the gym into my routines, and like focused on like uphill, just even uphill walking, because that's essentially what you do a lot of as well. Like some of these elevations, some of these steep bits are like a bit technical to run if you're not that confident. And for myself, some of them were a little bit technical to run, so I had to walk them. And actually I wish I could walk a bit faster. And so if I went back to, and come and do Tanzania again, I definitely add in like more walking, whether that's hills, Monroes, whatever, wherever you can go that you can practice like the hard things, like the hill reps. Like I just wish I did more hill reps. Yeah, because like you said about the heat is also something that, we can't really practice. So I definitely wore more clothes when I was running, and that was like my only way of practicing, trying to like run warm. But because that felt uncomfortable, I stuck to lots of flat running, and really I should have just pushed harder to go up the hills a bit more. And yeah, I found Tanzania great and I loved it, but I guess I would have felt like maybe on day 4 even better, because day 4 definitely felt horrendous. And yeah, maybe if I did a little bit more training in a different way, it would have helped me get there. But yeah, also what you were saying about the heat, like, and the fueling, just going back a bit, is the fueling in the heat is different as well now. And I felt like I went into Tanzania being really well fueled, but then the week or the 5 days of the run, I actually really struggled because of the heat. So Steph, I actually don't know if you have any tips to, tell anybody about eating in the heat, but that was definitely one of my challenges. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a good point. When you are hot, you don't really feel like maybe stomaching food. So it's also kind of having things like energy drinks, where in the heat you should have kind of you should feel thirsty and you need to listen to those signals. But maybe by having like an energy drink, then you're still getting the calories in without having to eat solid food. And you can buy kind of like sachets to put into drinks, which would fit in your kind of rucksacks really easily. So that is kind of the best way, I'd say, to get energy in if you're struggling to actually take on food. But I think what Sam was saying is also really important. Like, yeah, if you do like a marathon or a half marathon, you can take on gels, or even if you do something like a half Ironman or an Ironman, but it's only a day, you can probably get around taking on gels. But if you're doing that every single day, you're going to be so sick of like sweet, sugary stuff. So what you want to be practicing in your fueling is also having like a variety of different kind of like solid foods, whether that's kind of like dried sandwiches, flapjacks, bars, kind of like anything that you can take that's going to last in your rucksack, but also isn't a sugary gel the whole time. Like trail mix, nuts, things like that can be good just to break it up. Yeah, so that's kind of like my advice on the fueling and the heat, and just mixing up kind of what the type of things you're taking on, and also to take more than you think you'll need. It's always good to come back with a little bit extra rather than go out and not have enough.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd actually say on the kind of heat front as well, we've got 2 events now which have happened in fairly extreme warm places. We had an event in Sri Lanka in the past, and most of our audience is coming from the UK, so we absolutely see this a lot, people coming from cold temperatures, and you can actually make a really big difference in how you will perform in the race and how quickly you acclimatize by spending 3 weeks or 2 weeks before you come out, by actually doing certain protocols which will make you better when the temperature's high. And I guess best case scenario is getting in a heat chamber and getting on a bike or a treadmill. Obviously that's very expensive and not often accessible for people, but also things like hot baths, daily hot baths, things like getting in the sauna on a kind of frequent basis over that last, even things like going for runs wearing lots of layers, they will make a difference. And because those kind of acclimation benefits, actually they happen very quickly and then they kind of level off, you can actually make a really big difference in the last 3 weeks out from the event. And actually, there's not really going to be much extra gain by starting, now, for example, or 2 months out. So that's quite a nice thing to consider about when you're thinking about your taper, and when you've got other things to go on, is literally trying to work out ways that you can basically build getting hot into your kind of daily routine. And as I say, things like the sauna or things like hot baths can actually make a pretty significant difference. And I'd also just touch on I thought Gemma's point about the getting the elevation in is really important. I don't know what it is, but as runners, we look at distances. I think a lot of people, particularly in Europe, we go, it's 100 miles, it's 200 miles. We don't really look at the elevation. I think if you go to the Alps, people, all they look at is the elevation. So it's 1,000 meters, 3,000 meters. So, I'd encourage anyone who's considering the event to look at the up elevation, which is about 5,500 meters over the course of the week, and work out what that looks like per kilometer. So what does that look like on, say your standard, weekly 5K run or your 10K run, how many meters of elevation is that like the equivalent? And then you can kind of work out in your head what that means, what that kind of looks like. Because I think a lot of people get out there and you're like, this is what it looks like, which is fine, but it could be more beneficial to consider it kind of earlier in your training and then trying to build that in. And also, I thought the point about the stepper is a really good one. I live in London. I do race in the mountains. I have in the past tried to cheat and get on a treadmill and pump it up to 15%, and that's my training. But when you're on the trails, you're never on a carpet at 15%. So actually getting on the step machine is a much more similar movement to getting on a treadmill. So if people are kind of trying to do that, that is something I definitely say consider. I guess, Brett, you're also an ultra runner, with a load of experience and a coach. So I guess before we move on to kind of maybe a bit of injury prevention and some more stuff on nutrition, is there anything you kind of want to add in this space?
I think for me, after my aerobic base, the next thing I'm wanting to work on is just downhill running. So we talk a lot about elevation and we talk a lot about, step machines, and I think that's great. But I think too few people focus on downhill running, and that's where you're going to make up a lot of time, and that's where you're going to be able to run the next day, because your delayed onset muscle soreness is going to be far, far less. And so, I just would be trashing my quads once I got to a point that my body could handle it. That's what I'd be doing in preparation for all the downhill running. It's just amazing, because you're going to walk up some of these hills. You're not going to run everything. There's a lot of it that's not runnable. You're going to be walking it, but you can run almost every downhill we've got if you've got it in your legs to run it. And a lot of people just don't. By the end of the week, they don't have it anymore.
Yeah, no, completely. And that piece around damaging your quads, that's you're not going to injure yourself actually going up hills. You might lose some time, but actually if your quads aren't used to going on the downs hard, you'll smash them up on days 1 and 2. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Let me interrupt quickly. I don't remember what year you and Mark came to visit, but I was not in good running shape, but I took you up on Killy to run anyway. And we ran down, and it was quite a quick pace for me, especially out of shape, to try and keep up with you guys running down. And I could hardly walk the next 2 days, but I was trying not to show these two cool guys from Ultra X that I was in such pain. So I was trying to walk normal, pretend like I could still run. But it will just really, really hurt if you're not prepared for all the downhills.
And it took you 2 events to tell us that story.
It did, yeah. It took me 2 years before I told you that that's what happened.
Nice. Okay, cool. And injury prevention. So obviously the bane of every runner's life is getting injured. Steph, what are the things which, what are the early signs, early warning signs we should be looking for? What are the things we can do to safeguard getting injured in our training as we're kind of looking to build up the volume?
Yeah, so the biggest way that you can kind of safeguard injury is to be kind of doing your strength training and also not increasing your mileage too quickly. They're the increasing your mileage too quickly for something, your ability that you're not used to running that's the biggest increase. So avoid doing that to begin with. Adding strength training will kind of help keep kind of niggles at bay. If you have an injury that you had in the past and could come back, then make sure you keep on top of kind of any strength work that you've been prescribed by a physio, or that's going to keep that area pain free. And the warning signs kind of for injury obviously is going to be pain, but if something is and a lot of runners find it hard to know kind of when to stop or when to take a wee break. If the pain is starting to obviously get worse, you're feeling it when you're walking, you're feeling it overnight, like those are kind of really big red flags. If it's something that kind of maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable, but then warms up during a run and then is completely fine for the next few days, then it probably is just a little niggle and you might get away with it. But if it keeps occurring kind of run after run and popping up, then you might want to kind of seek advice from a physio to see what it is. And sometimes it can be something really simple, like you're just a little bit tight in this area, here's some stretches, and that will help it go away. But the biggest kind of thing is do not kind of run through pain and keep pushing through it, because that's where you will just have something that was a little niggle and you'll develop it into a full-blown injury. And that doesn't mean you can't train at all. Just find things that you can do that is pain-free. There's plenty of good kind of non-impact exercises that you can do that's still going to keep you really fit. So you can kind of replace any running sessions with kind of things like the bike, in the pool. You can kind of do aqua jogging or swimming in the pool, the elliptical, the kind of rowing machine. All these things will still keep you aerobically and endurance-wise really strong. And if you're someone even that can't handle a lot of running mileage, then instead of kind of finding your limit and going over it, then add these kind of things alongside your running training, because they will really, really help you on race day too. When it comes to strength training, like a lot of people don't really know what to do. And that's where I would kind of advise like downloading an app like Runner. They have strength plans on there. You can let the app know what equipment you have, whether that's at home or in a gym, and it will build a strength training plan for you. And having something to follow just means you're more likely to actually stick to it and do it, because if you just go to the gym kind of mindlessly, then it's quite hard to kind of, have the structure and motivation to kind of do something. Similarly, you could go along to kind of gym classes, circuit classes. All those kind of things are really help with your strength training as well. And I would aim for kind of 2 sessions a week if you can. Otherwise, you could just do one, and you could do a shorter session. There's loads of kind of great YouTube things that you can do that literally last like 15-20 minutes, and that's absolutely better than nothing at all. So just try and like use your imagination, factor in a session that works for you given your life and your busy work schedule and things like that. But if you kind of pre-plan it each week, you're more likely to do it rather than say, I'm going to do 2 strength sessions and have no idea what they are. Then they're probably not going to happen.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. I think one thing I think is key is something is better than nothing. And everyone's time poor sometimes, and if you can fit in 1 15-minute session a week, it can make a really big difference. And I think the other thing there I just kind of emphasize is really important is like volume management. I think keeping a training plan just so you kind of know roughly how much you're doing and how much you're increasing your volume, if you are increasing it, is a really important thing to do, just to make sure you aren't increasing. It's amazing how many times you hear from people who've just been injured and you say, what were you doing for the last 6 weeks? And they say, oh, I did this hero workout, or I did this hero week. And yeah, so I completely agree. And I guess just on that, a question we get asked 1 million times, for some reason, every event we ask is what is the longest run I should do for something like this? And I always say it really doesn't matter. It's much more important to be consistent over a period of time than have one hero session, which you're going to taper for 2 weeks before and then be sore for 2 weeks after. So yeah, I'd really follow exactly what kind of things Steph kind of talks about there.
Balance like your training throughout the week. Like if you have consistency, as Sam's saying, throughout the week, then that's going to get you stronger for race day rather than just going once a week and doing one huge run. That's not an effective way to train. Another thing that to touch on to help with injury management is to be taking kind of regular deload weeks. So what you don't want to be doing between now and race day is just increasing your mileage week on week on week on week, because obviously you're going to get to a point where you're like, where can I go with this? So kind of every kind of 4 to 5 weeks, I would kind of drop your mileage by like 60%. If you're really an active person and you still want to be moving, then do things like yoga, swimming, anything non-impact to replace those runs, but just take it easy. Give your body that kind of physical, mental break, because that allows you to kind of recover, repair, adapt, so that you can continue to build week on week. And also things like if you're not eating well, hydrating well, sleeping well around your training, that's also going to increase your injury risk.
Yeah, cool. I'm conscious of time. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, but I'm going to try and fit in just touching on a bit of like kind of nutrition and hydration, which we've already touched on a little bit. Jemma, you come into this event, you've got 5 days where you're basically supposed to plan all of your fuel or all of your food for the course of the week. There are opportunities to get some things, but how do you go about planning that? And I'm going to ask you again, what are the things you would change, if anything? And yeah, how do you kind of structure it around, like, you know, what do you take for each stage? What do you take after each stage? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so definitely before, like the week before, took me a full 7 days to like label food and just like have it all laid out in the kitchen and fully understand like what I was trying to eat each day, because the heat does play a massive part, and you definitely need to have like a few options. So like breakfast, I was taking the dehydrated meals, but then also just making sure I maybe had an oat bar in case that morning I couldn't stomach the dehydrated meal. I took a couple of bags of just plain porridge oats as well, just because you never quite know exactly how you're going to feel. But I know that everything I took for breakfast, dinner, etc., I knew my body could cope with. So yeah, I guess just having options. Lunch is a hard part, and it also depends like how long you're out on the trails for. Like, do you know, some people are running a lot quicker than what I was. On average, I was out for like 8 to 10 hours every day. So yeah, I had a couple of gels, but I also had like nuts, snacks, and I made sure that my little like sandwich bags were all calorie counted to how, you know, just so I roughly knew that this portion of nuts or this portion of apricots, how much I was taking in. Because sometimes actually it's quite nice to have that focus of like, okay, so I'm eating these nuts and this has so many calories in it and this is going to fuel me a little bit longer. And it just kind of took away my mind maybe from, do you know, your mind goes all over the place when you get to the hard point, and actually just having it written down, this is Monday's snacks, this is Tuesday's snacks, etc. I had it all detailed, all labeled. Whether I was probably a bit over prepared, but actually it just helped my nerves throughout the week, and then I knew exactly what I was taking on. But which I think I had Fire Pot, is that right? The yellow and black ones, they were my go-to. Do you know, and I arrived in camp and I remember the first day someone telling me like, that's horrible, that's disgusting, I don't like that one. But I think like I was just like, no, I've not made the wrong decision, I've tried it, I know I like it, this will get me through. And yeah, and just, you know, the campmates and everybody that you have around you, they all advise as well. Like I guess like towards day 4, when I telling you like I was really struggling, people just helped and offered like some of their electrolytes, because I just took one flavor of electrolyte and for some reason I just couldn't drink it anymore. So someone else offered me another one, and it was just that simple of like a peach to a berry that made like such a difference. So yeah, like be prepared, but also like know that everyone's around to support you and help you. And you know, people are going to be able to swap if they've got maybe a little bit of a better snack than what you do. But yeah, definitely focus on a good breakfast, good dinner, and then whatever you can while you're running. Because yeah, like I say, it's not quite lunch, but like just enough fuel to get you through. Whatever that is, gels, chews, nuts, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think I definitely. I think you've made lots of really good points there. I think they're kind of actually. I don't think necessarily you were over prepared. I think it's great to be over prepared with these things. I think you set yourself up really well. But I think actually making sure that, you know, doing the process of basically looking at each day. You know, the distances. You know what the distances are going to be each day. You can kind of work out roughly how long you might be out there. And I think, you know, the fact that there are several different races going on is really important as well. You know, some people who are doing this race are going to be out there for, you know, maybe their longest day might be 6 hours. So actually they're going to be back in time for lunch every day, and they might have a proper lunch every day. But actually the vast majority of people are out for 8 hours, 10 hours, maybe even longer for some of the days. So actually you're having, you know, you're having your lunch on the go. So it might be breakfast, and then you have flapjacks and nuts, etc., and snacky lunch, and then you have a proper dinner. So kind of thinking about that is really important. And I guess the other kind of thing to kind of consider is, you know, for a multi-stage, obviously recovery is really important. So being ready for the next stage. So, you know, I think having something which you know you're going to have access to fairly quickly after finishing each stage, ideally with a bit of protein and carbohydrate content, which you can basically get down yourself quickly, and is going to, you know, you're going to be able to eat just after, or eat or drink after you finish running, is a really good idea. Conscious of time, and we do have, unfortunately, a hard cutoff, but I asked some questions. I'll flick through them in a second, but I'm going to ask each of our panelists, if I can, for one piece of advice to our audience here who might be considering the event. What is the one thing you would do, consider, or prepare for if you were doing this event in 25? Brett, I'm going to pick on you first.
I don't know. I think running is only about half of it. I mean, I just think you need to come prepared to see something new, to experience a culture, hospitality, make some new friends. I just think there's so much more to this event than running. And so I'd keep that in mind. I think a lot of people, an event like this will change you. And I think a lot of people do not expect them to, they don't expect it to change them outside of kind of physical running. I don't know. And it's more than that. It's a lot more than that. So be prepared.
Yeah. Steph?
I'd say like focus on yourself, like with everything. Your training you can manage, the food that you decide that you want to have, like as Jemma was saying, like be confident in that, stick to your decisions, don't let other people sway you when you get there, that if they don't like something doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. Be over prepared when it comes to like trying out your kit, trying out different types of fuel, taking more fuel than you think you'll need. Just be organized and focus on you. That's my biggest advice.
Nice. And Jemma?
Yeah, it's a hard one, but like I guess a bit like what you were saying, Brett, is like there's so much more than just the run in. Like take it all in. Like there was plenty of like local people with cokes at the side of the road and lemonades that like hadn't even considered, and like that just makes such a difference. You know, but just be open to it and go with it, and all the different things you see, all the little towns, the villages. If you run past a school at playtime, lunchtime, the school bell goes, like it's actually like just incredible to see as like as you're running, and it just takes your mind away from you know, all the things that maybe you don't have during your training in the UK. So yeah, slightly easier to like take your mind somewhere else when you're in Tanzania.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think mine would probably be exactly the same vein, but it would just be make sure to enjoy it. You know, I think there's always moments in these events where you can like want to question everything and you know, doubt yourself, and you've got to stop in those moments and look around and actually go from the, you know, why am I doing this to more how lucky am I that I'm doing this, because you know, we're so fortunate to be able to, you know, run and walk around the places that we are, thanks to, you know, thanks to people like Brett, who've, you know, managed to build connections with amazing people that let us run around their kind of areas. So yeah, it's an awesome experience, and obviously we'd love to kind of welcome a few of you next February. I'm just going to very quickly flick through these. I think Brett's kindly answered most of them. Pierre, daily race profile is available. That's on the race page at the moment. There's also an information pack with a bit of a daily kind of breakdown. Food, aid stations have water only, Pierre. So no nutrition gels, etc. Covered. I think that's pretty much it. Any more questions for any more before we close? And as I say, I'll send around the recording over the next few days. And yeah, thank you all for your time. We'd love to see you next year, if not another time. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop me an email after this, or fire a message over. I'm more than happy to answer. Or if you want to have just a call and go through anything, again, more than happy. You know, we genuinely do this because we love getting people to the finish line of these events, and you know, we'd love to have a few more people join us next year and get across the finish line at Charla. So yeah, thanks all for your time. Have a great evening, and we'll call it a day there. Cheers.